Yeah, you see that one? The microphone boost was on still. You wish you had the option for this kind of thing, eh, one? The Toronto man's word of the day is waste. It's just like you're saying, Steve Aoki, you're waste for the crap music you make. What's up, fam? It's your boy Demuir here, purveyor of all sounds underground. Thank you for joining me on my YouTube channel today, where I'll be discussing the topic of how to submit demos in 2021, considering we are starting to enter in post-pandemic mode, seeing a lot of light at the other end of the tunnel. But it will require some modifications in terms of how you're submitting demos as a result of the pandemics. But before we jump into things, what I need from you is that SLC. Hit subscribe, like, comment, and more importantly, hit the notifications bell to stay in touch with the new videos that we have up and coming. So let's jump right into things. This is probably one of the most important points here, but point number one is to ensure that you are targeting the right labels. And what I mean by this is targeting the right labels that align to your sound, and more importantly, the labels that you can actually foresee yourself releasing on, as opposed to targeting those labels for the looks or the PR quote-unquote hype that comes with it. It's just obvious in your music, and it'll come out in the way things flush out consequently. So it's better to target the labels that appreciate and support the type of sound you have, and you can only do that with proper research in terms of the types of music that the label is releasing. Point number two, provide a complete package. What I mean by this is to ensure that you're providing, 3 or 4 of your strongest songs in your opinion. You've received good feedback on them and constructive feedback on them and made changes as a result. And as well, make sure they just sound good. I'm not saying at a master level, and I actually want to pause here. Some people have asked me this question when submitting demos: should the songs be mastered? In my opinion, it should not be, because each label will elect to leverage their particular mastering engineer, but it depends. I mean, I'll be honest, for Purveyor Underground, I've received mastered stuff that sounded in line with what we would normally do, but it's on the very rare side. So I would just submit that when you're providing music, make sure it's mixed down properly, make sure it's some of your best tunes that you're putting your foot forward with, and and see what happens as a result. But to master it with somebody else's twist on it might actually backfire on you, because the label has their own perception and process of how they want to go about mastering their own tracks that they sign. Point number three, this one's important because I see it a lot on Purveyor Underground, and I just don't understand why people do this, but it is to not submit singles. Do not submit single tracks thinking that the label is just going to sign them and go forward with it. EPs sell better historically, and I'm again speaking from a Purveyor Underground perspective and as well as an artist perspective. I would think that if you're putting your best foot forward, you want to showcase your style and your range as an artist. So you can only do that with at least 3 or 4 tracks in a SoundCloud playlist that the label can review, just to demonstrate, yeah, I can make house or tech house or whatever, or it could all be in the same genre, but at least they can hear your interpretation of that in different segments via the different tracks that you're submitting. Submitting one song is just like, okay, well, what do you want me to do with this? Are you suggesting that there's going to be a remix? And we've had that happen too, where someone has submitted a single, but it's come with other mixes. And I would say that's probably a better instance of doing so, because at least the label has an understanding of the full package. But just to submit one song and say, go for it, really flies in the face of what the industry demands. EPs simply sell better, they get more play, and they get greater consideration. So I would highly recommend submitting at least 2 to 4 songs, like EP ready songs, good to go. And point number 4, you're probably going to see this a lot, now that there's sort of a light at the other end of the tunnel and things are slowly opening up in different places around the world, is to be patient, but be patient with expectations. And what I mean by that is if I were to submit a demo, regardless if I'm a beginner or an established artist, my time needs to be respected. And I respect the time of others just as much. It's the one common denominator, aside from morbid things like that, that we all have. So for that, I would say allow at least 2 weeks for a label to respond. And considering we're starting to move towards a post pandemic environment, you might actually have to wait even longer, but that's really up to you and what threshold you want to put against that. Like, I mean, the longest personally for me I would go is 3 or 4 weeks. And for all the other labels that have received my music and and are kind of saying, no man, you waited several months, that's only because my manager has begged me to give you guys more time. And I'm not ego tripping here, I'm just saying it's music, it's my asset, I can be doing a lot with it, and it's important that you as a new artist or even an established artist just be reasonable and set some expectations for yourself. There's just no real excuse via pandemic or post pandemic where a label has your demo for several months and they haven't at least communicated something to you to let you know what's going on. I will put in a caveat here, and this is where the expectations piece comes in. We've been in a pandemic and are still in one, but there's a light at the other end of the tunnel. And facts are some labels have actually slowed down their operations, so they've got in some cases a massive backlog of music. They're trying to decide based on whatever demos were submitted before the pandemic or whatever they signed just after the pandemic, when and where to release that catalog of music. So you just got to balance all of that into consideration, but the time aspect and your expectations around it are something you set, and I think 2 to 3 weeks is very reasonable in my opinion. So anyway, set what works best for you and move forward with that. And last but not least is to consider your own platform. So let's say no labels have come back to you, or you've received the feedback that hey, it's not for them, they weren't quite 100% on it to move forward. What greater reason than to consider your own platform to release your music on? I mean, it's something I'm doing actively and will continue to do, whether it's Bandcamp, Patreon, you can release free edits on SoundCloud as well. They're all things to consider. And last but not least is just to start your own label and just start building from there. But just understand, you need to feed those platforms should you decide to go that route, and just be even more selective with the other labels external from your platform that you want to submit music to. I think the building and owning of your masters and all of that activity, and the fact that there's technology that enables us to be able to set up and sell our creations rather rapidly, it's just not going to go away. It might see a dip post-pandemic, but I wouldn't rule it out completely, especially for an artist like myself, where I've now experienced, oh geez, like I'm actually starting to see a lot of the dollars from my creations actually coming back to me at rates of 80 to 90+% on the dollar, as opposed to me chasing labels for statements in some cases, and other really crazy labels that have your music in perpetuity and just continue remixing it and saying, oh, we're going to charge you for that remix in order for them to not have to pay you any royalty at all. Like, that part of the game is quite discouraging, but it's easily combated with you setting up and running your own platforms accordingly and finding some balance between your own platform and the labels that you love to release music on. And there you have it. Those are my thoughts on submitting demos in 2021, and a little bit on my last point about if all else fails, what you should be considering in your artistry or overall career on a go forward. Let me know your thoughts on it. I usually join the conversation within 48 hours of posting these videos, so I'd love to hear what you got to say. And it doesn't have to stop here. In case you've been living under a rock or just been in a complete dark, as of March 1st, we are running an active contest on my Patreon and Discord platforms where we will be raffling off a customized longboard and a Arturia Micro Freak synthesizer. Really great stuff. It's towards our journey of 200 subscribing patrons. And the moment we hit that, we'll raffle off both accordingly and send them out to you. So check us out. Much love and respect to you. Peace.